The Reed and Barton Virtual Archive is a project created by the Old Colony History Museum with funding provided by Mass Humanities. These short videos were created for the Virtual Archive to offer a brief overview of the history of Reed and Barton. Reed and Barton developed from its humblest origins in 1824 in Taunton, Massachusetts, to become one of America's most successful manufacturers of metal tableware, flatware, metal accessories, and housewares. For almost 200 years, Reed and Barton helped satisfy eager consumers and define American manufacturing. There are four main eras in the history of Reed and Barton as the company advanced from Britannia pewterware to electro silverplate goods to sterling silverware and finally into the modern era with a focus on flatware. This first video will explore the earliest chapter of Reed and Barton's long history, manufacturing with Britannia pewter, and examine how the company grew from a scrappy and tenuous startup to a thriving and stable business. In 1828, the United States was a young nation without a unified currency, with no transportation network, with no design independence, and with little in the way of everyday luxury. Reed and Barton began in this climate and grew with the nation, helping to advance the progress that came to define American technology, innovation, and design. Before we can appreciate the early efforts of the company, we need to pause for a moment and examine Britannia metal. It's a pewter alloy, but it has some important differences. Pewter has a dull gray surface that can be polished, but the softness of the metal and its tendency to oxidize create a dull gray surface with time. Metalsmiths used pewter in the 1600s to make more affordable versions of sterling silver items, making things like metal plates, teapots, ewers, and tankards affordable to more than just the wealthy. Pewter could offer all the visual status of silver at a fraction of the cost. Because it's a soft metal, pewter was generally cast in molds, which created thicker pieces than metal items that were formed from sections of sheet metal. Pewter is made up of tin, antimony, and copper. Britannia is almost exactly the same alloy, with just the tiniest difference in percentages. But this difference produced a new alloy that was harder than pewter and could be highly polished and then hold that polish to look more like silver than traditional pewter. Same low price as traditional pewter, but a much closer approximation of otherwise unattainable luxury goods. Additionally, because of the increased strength of Britannia compared to pewter, it could be not only cast, but also formed into sheets, which were then stamped and spun into shapes, giving metalsmiths more options for creating finished goods that more closely resembled silver. In the 1770s, English pewter makers began using this new Britannia alloy to make goods that quickly became popular. Because the secrets of this alloy were unknown to American craftsmen, all Britannia ware sold in the U.S. had to be imported from England, making it more expensive. In New England, Isaac Babbitt ran his father's jewelry store in the Union Block of Taunton, Massachusetts. Babbitt managed to replicate the mysterious Britannia metal in his workshop. In 1824, with business partner William Crossman, he began manufacturing among the earliest American-made Britannia ware. This teapot is an excellent example of what could be achieved with Britannia metal that would not have been possible with softer pewter. The fluting and crisp edges achieved by spinning and stamping sections of sheet metal, and then soldering them together, give Britannia ware its distinctive look. The company moved into a newly constructed two-story brick factory in 1827, when William Allen West added his financial support, becoming the "and Company" added to the Babbitt and Crossman name. By 1828, the three partners employed a workforce of 15. Babbitt left the business in 1829, and the prosperous Leonard family bought in, making it now Crossman, West, and Leonard. A year later, the company was renamed Taunton Britannia Manufacturing Company, and then relocated to a larger space in the Hopewell area on the Mill River. Two apprentices, Henry G. Reed and Charles E. Barton, assumed ownership of the company when Taunton Britannia floundered in 1835, and Leonard, Reed and Barton was officially formed in 1837. In their rented buildings, using rented tools, with a tiny crew of 5 dedicated employees, the pair managed to keep the concern afloat and eventually become profitable. The success of Leonard, Reed and Barton led to expansion of the factory, all powered by the Mill River. The company was a big part of what earned Taunton the nickname Silver City. Leonard sold his share in 1840, and finally, Reed and Barton became the name of the company. In just 15 years, the company had survived 6 different names. The final name, Reed and Barton, stuck for the next 175 years. There are a few other aspects of this early history of Reed and Barton, indeed of the entire country, that are worth considering. The first is water power, and the schedule that it imposed on manufacturing. The Mill River could be relied on for water power only in spring and winter. The river did not flow with enough strength to power machinery in summer or fall. In 1826, the Fayette Street factory added a rotative valve steam engine to help power the plant and augment the water power, but it proved almost as unreliable as the river. Nevertheless, one of the 2 water wheels installed in 1830 stayed in operation all the way through 1900. The second consideration is transportation. Getting goods from the factory, which was not near the docks, to a ship in Taunton Harbor relied on carts pulled on dirt roads, which worked best in summer and fall to avoid mud and snow. Schooners could not get up the Taunton River in winter because it froze over. So each aspect of the business was seasonal, but none of those seasons overlapped conveniently. In 1832, there was no money coming in between January and March, and then it only came in any useful way through July. Another consideration was access to customers. Because long-distance travel by land was challenging, Reed and Barton sold most of their wares in places boats could get to easily. In the early years, far more was sold in far-off Philadelphia than in relatively nearby Boston. The Taunton Branch Railroad connected the city to the Boston-Providence rail line starting in 1836, and a rail line to New Bedford arrived in 1849. But it wasn't until 1873 that the rail lines were truly unified, allowing steady access to a winter port and transforming shipping options. Also, in the 1830s, federal money was gold and silver coin, with an occasional treasury note printed, and there just wasn't enough money in circulation to satisfy the needs of daily commerce. As a sort of solution, many states allowed private banks to issue their own currency. National paper money finally came about during the Civil War as a way to help fund it. So Reed and Barton, on top of all the other challenges, had to function in an economy that was largely still based on bartering. Fastidious accounting books show how carefully all expenses were tracked to allow payment through trade. This extended to employees who were often paid with bank credit slips and credits with local merchants who had arrangements with Reed and Barton. The account books, which now live in the Harvard Baker Business Library, also offer us a rare understanding of the makeup of the workforce at Reed and Barton throughout its long history. We see that not only were many workers related, with entire families working for the company, but also what a significant percentage of the workers were women. Because polishing and burnishing paid by the piece, gender didn't factor into pay in the same way it did for professions that paid by the hour. In 1857, the burnishing department had 16 workers, all women. But the biggest challenge at this point in the history of manufacturing in the young United States was a stylistic one. There was, literally, no reason to make anything original. All designs were directly copied from England. English manufacturers could be relied upon for the latest styles, made with established methods, producing quality goods. Consumers did not want to speculate on local innovation. On the left is a James Dixon teapot made in Sheffield, England. On the right is a teapot made by Reed and Barton in Taunton, and you can see they're more than just similar. The goal was to expand the customer base by producing well-made, affordable wares, not to expand the range of styles offered. George Sweet, in The Whitesmiths of Taunton, his 1943 book about Reed and Barton, wrote, "America in the 1840s was still a lusty young country, too energetic to be artistic, and forced by that circumstance, as well as by tradition, to borrow from older and more sophisticated civilizations." In 1838, a 3-piece coffee set from England sold in the States for $9.16, and a similar Reed and Barton set cost only $6.83. This determination to offer quality wares in popular styles at affordable prices was the consistent goal of Reed and Barton throughout its almost 200 years in operation, and it was their plan right from the earliest days of the company. Sometimes there were small additions and alterations, like the feet added to the teapot on the right, and sometimes they produced exact copies. English examples were purchased by agents in New York City and then shipped to Taunton for use as templates. There were no designers at Reed and Barton at this point. The entire focus was on figuring out manufacturing and just keeping the young business afloat. Advertising from the period states no better quality and in the same pattern. And Reed and Barton's success at imitation continues to fool us. This is one auction lot, but it's actually made up of 3 objects from 3 different manufacturers. The 2 on the left are English, and the one on the right is American. The history of copying British design began to change in the 1840s as American businesses became more stable and as consumers began to look for novelty. Reed and Barton began more radically altering their versions of imported examples and gradually shifting to their own designs created in-house. In the background, behind all the tea sets, Reed and Barton made other Britannia goods to help expand their output and solidify their business. They produced castor frames and spoons in large quantities. In 1849, they were making 12,000 spoons every week. The most successful of their other products was coffin hardware, which was in great demand through the 19th century, but is difficult for us to consider now as their scant visual record of what the early Reed and Barton coffin hardware looked like. These images are from a later 1879 catalog when coffin hardware continued as an important product category. It is difficult to consider because it was never advertised. It predated the development of promotional materials like ads and catalogs, and it's not a product that has been preserved by being included in museum collections. Also, the majority of coffin hardware, obviously, was buried. These poor reproduced patent images are among the few records that remain of this aspect of the company's vast output. By 1850, Reed and Barton was, at last, firmly established. They employed a workforce of around 100, which included over 30 women, and were doing over $100,000 in annual sales, which would be over $3.5 million today. William Parkin arrived in 1854 as the first design director, overseeing the production of dies used to begin creating new shapes. They had gone from experimenting with alloys to arrive at a usable version of Britannia to mastering not only the metallurgy, but also all aspects of transforming it from ingot to finished ware. Water and steam-powered machinery was used to roll ingots into sheets. The sheets were stamped and spun into volumes, and the volumes were then assembled by hand into finished goods. Many of the techniques were invented, reinvented, or significantly advanced by Reed and Barton. Sectional or split chucks were developed at Reed and Barton in the 1870s to allow spinning an enclosed shell around a volume and then removing the support by taking sections out at a time. This technology quickly spread to every other manufacturer. The next chapter in the history of Reed and Barton examines the solidification of their success and their pioneering involvement in another triumph of technology and material use, electroplating, using an electric current to deposit a layer of real silver over Britannia metal to create wares that looked even more like silver but kept prices low and made the wares affordable to more customers.